Oh, there we go. It's always something, eh? You just never know. Who knows? Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I am Bruce McDonald, and this is the Talamanca Review. And it's 11:05 p.m. my time, which is Mountain Central Time, and it's the 16th of December, 2025. What a mouthful that is, eh? And tonight we're going to do a podcast, as most nights. I mean, let's be honest, I like to do, it's like a daily journal. It's like Captain's Log, Star Date. And I do it. We got some cement poured in the bodega today, which is going to be my new office. And that's why I don't, oh, you can't see it, it's dark now, but there's a whole bunch of stuff behind me, bunk beds and all this kind of stuff. And then we got to tile it. I got the tile, and everything's looking good. Oh, yeah. I was just looking for my phone. I left it over by the sofa. Um, so I don't know what it is with this age of what I would call the TV renaissance, but I mean it just doesn't stop. So I found yet. Oh, I'm getting a bit hot there as I get the mic closer to me. I found just another absolutely fantastic television show. I don't know if HBO Max did it or they just bought it and brought it over to HBO. But it's an Italian series called Gomorrah. And it was, I suppose it was Italy's response to the success of The Sopranos. And it's a look at the mafia in Naples as it exists pretty much today. And it's, I'll tell you, it's a far cry from Don Corleone and stuff. It's very, very street and very Shakespearean. Well worth the watch. My son and I watch an episode a night. They're about, I don't know, 50 minutes, but like a Talamanca review, and we're really enjoying it. So there's my television recommendation for the day. Um, oh, I told you yesterday about what's going on where I live and everything. It's a little bit dramatic and stuff, but yeah, it is what it is, right? Everything is just changing so quickly now. It's really kind of amazing when you think about it that, everything could just sort of change this quickly. Um, you know, who'd have thunk it, so to speak? I don't know if I like that light. Yeah, I guess let me just get some light here. And, oh, that's a bit dark. I gotta get some light going. I don't know. I don't wonder why the computer's picking it up so brightly. Ah, that's a bit better. Well, I don't know what to tell you, man. I mean, life is beautiful. I mean, it pretty much always is for me. And um, That's just the way I feel about it. And I think, again, the change is a renewal. The fire is a renewal. And what puts out fire is water, and water is always symbolic of spirit, given its fluidity and its ability to fit into any form, any container it's put into. That's why water is the metaphor for spirit. And it has certain spiritual properties. It's not just metaphorically used for baptism and stuff like that. What the hell is going on here, man? I'll let you in on what I'm debating, whether I want to do politics or whether I want to do something more philosophical or spiritual. I guess it'll all come out, so why fight it, right? Just let it come out. No need to overthink this. I mean, if anybody cannot see what a three-ring circus this is now, they're just not paying attention. How about that Benjamin Netanyahu, eh? Agreeing to a ceasefire in the final 5 days of the Biden administration? Why give that to Biden? After Trump gave them Golan Heights, recognized it from the U.S. perspective as Israeli territory, and after Trump moved the United States Embassy to Jerusalem. I mean, it's kind of mind-boggling when you think about it. I mean, if anybody has any ideas, I'm open to hearing them. By the way, I'm going to do call-ins tonight. I got the headset set up. So if anyone wants to call in, it's call me on Skype or 864-810-1039. I'll give it out a few times during the show. Yeah, but it just doesn't make any sense to me. Like, nothing makes any sense to me. You know? The only thing I can say with relative certainty is that everything that's going on is choreographed. And I mean that. This is Mexican tag team wrestling. And the tag team is Biden and Trump. Okay? So I don't know what all this is now. I don't know what all this is going on here. Let's see if maybe we can get a handle on this somehow. I'll bring in some other players, and here's a minute 16 of Anthony Blinken, okay? And I mean, listen to what this guy is saying. I mean, you can't make this shit up. I mean, this is as he's leaving office. In the captured country of the United States, captured by Israel. It's not a military capture, so and I can assure you of one thing. This is not consensus. I don't believe any of these people really believe in the right of Israel to do what it's doing. So if it's not moral consensus, what is it? Israel certainly has not captured the United States in any military sense. Anyways, let's listen to Blinken and his bullshit for a sec.
In Ukraine as well, we've seen the results of steadfast American leadership. We rallied and kept together some 50 countries to help Ukraine defend itself from Putin's war of aggression. Through Ukrainian courage and also Western resolve and firepower, Ukraine repelled Russia's invasion and took back half the territory it originally seized. We've marshaled commitments from countries around the world that will help Ukraine deter and defend against future attacks and stand on its own feet militarily, economically, democratically. We've also imposed the most ambitious sanctions and export controls ever on Russia, cutting off its biggest banks, reducing dramatically Europe's reliance on Russian energy, oil and gas, almost to zero at this point. As a result of some of our latest sanctions, Russian oil tankers are piling up along the Chinese coast, unable to offload. Ukraine will continue to stand as an independent, democratic nation anchored in the West with the freedom to choose its own future. If we sustain our support for Ukraine, if we continue to exacerbate Putin's growing manpower and economic dilemmas, we can continue to help Ukrainians gain leverage to negotiate a just and secure peace.
I mean, what do you say to that? I don't believe anything he said. The sanctions completely backfired and catalyzed BRICS. Not to mention that, and again, it reinforces what I've told you, right? Like, so money, the control of the money system, the SWIFT system, the access to international markets, as it's governed by the World Bank, it's an American enterprise. Tell me another country that has applied sanctions to an antagonistic state in the last 10, 15, 20 years. Okay? Nobody does it. The levers of power in this financial system are in Washington. Which direction those levers are pushed or pulled, I think, comes from Jerusalem, Tel Aviv. But you can't tell me any of this stuff is real. Everything they did aided Russia and aided the demise of the United States. It's so patently facile to see now. I try not to get upset with people who cannot or will not see it. I leave people be. What can you do? You can tell them. And I made a comment on a friend's Facebook page, lovely woman, about 70 years old, from California, pretending she's woke. She said some asinine things. I didn't rip her head off. I just said, hey. And then one of her friends writes some comment, and you shouldn't eat some kind of dingleberries, I think he said. Eating dingleberries is bad for the digestion, buddy. I had to look up dingleberries, but it's not good. And it's like people don't even want to think about the situation anymore, if they ever did. Again, it's another example of the real lever of mind control is, in fact, emotion. I'm reminded of something Bob told me. You know, we wrote it in The Light of Darkness. He was very specific in the way he characterized the interdimensional entities that are working with the power brokers on this planet, specifically the Council of 300. He gave a very specific attire for them, which is a black fedora and a black suit, which again is super creepy. I mean, have you ever stopped and thought about that? Black suit, black fedora. Who dresses like that? Orthodox rabbis, Jesuits, and priests, when they're in out of robes, they'll generally wear the priest's uniform. The suit they wear is a black suit, and they usually have a black hat as well, black fedora. And who else? Who did John Edmonds describe visiting him at Stardust Ranch? Floating through the front gate at the end of his driveway, literally walking right through it. Men in black. You've got well, I shouldn't say you've got the suggestion of a fracture on this caustic alliance on the right. And it looks completely amateur and ill-disciplined. You know, you've got Steve Bannon declaring public war against Elon Musk. I don't get it. Now, please tell me I'm not the only one. I mean, if I dreamed this crap, I'd wake up and say I had the weirdest dream. And it's our reality. You know? I touched on this already. I don't mean to repeat myself, but I go where feeling dictates in the podcast. I go where spirit directs me or wills me, where my intuition takes me. You come this close to a Harris administration. Everything we've been through. Everything we've been through. The first Trump term, the lawfare for 4 years, the endless harassment, endless court dates trying to stop him from campaigning. All of it. Not a word from Steve Bannon in the interim or in the 6 months leading up to the election. I've lost faith in Trump. Vote for who you will. He's Trump, 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 Trump all the way. Trump gets into office, he waits 1 or 2 days. This Elon Musk guy's got to go. He's evil. Take a victory lap, Bannon. You know, take a breath. Have a margarita. We just got snatched out of the fire. And why are you undermining the president's authority before he's even been inaugurated? None of this shit makes any sense. I'm going to rely on the work of others a little bit tonight. I'm going to use a little bit of Alex Jones here. This might be a little bit long. It's 9 minutes and 20 seconds, but Joe Biden declares war on Elon Musk in bizarre farewell address. I mean, just what? Like, why not Trump? Why Musk? I mean, he's in the cabinet, but he didn't run in any election. Right?
That's why my farewell address tonight, I want to warn the country of some things that give me great concern. Today, an oligarchy is taking shape in America of extreme wealth, power, and influence that literally threatens our entire democracy, our basic rights and freedoms. You know, his farewell address, President Eisenhower spoke of the dangers of the military-industrial complex. He warned us then about, and I quote, the potential for the disastrous rise of misplaced power, end of quote. 6 decades later, I'm equally concerned about the potential rise of a tech-industrial complex that could pose real dangers for our country as well. Social media is giving up on fact-checking. The truth is smothered by lies hold for power and for profit. We must hold the social platforms accountable to protect our children, our families, and our very democracy from the abuse of power. I think that Elon Musk's cooperation and/or technical relationships with other countries is worthy of being looked at. Whether or not he is doing anything inappropriate, I'm not suggesting that. I'm suggesting that it's worth being looked at. But that's all I'll say.
Well, let me get my 2 cents in before Alex Jones goes to town here. In fact, maybe that's all I'll play from that script, and we'll go back here to the main screen. A tech industrial complex. Are you kidding me? Okay. You got Anthony Blinken sounding very much like it's the end of the Ukraine conflict, and he's presenting a list of the things they achieved in behalf of Ukraine. It's openly known by the whole world, anybody who wants to know, that many of the arms that the United States and Britain and other countries sent over there, Zelensky sold for profit. The arms did not go to the Ukrainian soldiers. Nor one can only wonder where the aid money went, or what the auditing or accountability on the acceptance of that money is, how the Ukrainian administration has to report back to the U.S. Treasury for fiscal responsibility. It's been 4 years of looting. 4 years of looting. All of them multimillionaires. Mob princess Nancy Pelosi, and she's a mob princess, by the way. So is Hillary Clinton, meaning that they're the daughters of mob families, like mafia families, okay, connected to the mob. And Clinton's obviously not Italian, but Pelosi is. I mean, it's like we're run by the Yakuza now. Everything is criminal. Everything. Everything suddenly is Mexico City now. When did the world get this dark? Has it always been this dark? Am I just waking up? It's mind-boggling. And it's incomprehensible. I have never seen anything like this in my life. Never seen anything like this in my life. And the thing to note, the most important thing, are the effects on other countries of Trump's election. Not on Trump, but on other countries. Here's an example of what I mean.
I think it was really important yesterday as we met with first ministers from across the country that premiers have an opportunity to express the interests of their citizens, of their industry, of their area. Certainly, I don't blame Danielle Smith for speaking up for her industry. That's part of her.
Remember that this asshole said he was leaving the office. And here he is, when a robust selection process has completed and the party has a new leader. There's no robust selection process. It's Mark Carney. Mark Carney is the ultimate Ottawa bagman. And he's a globalist bagman. He's the guy that brought in the bail-in legislation under his stewardship of the Bank of Canada, and then they jettisoned him over to make him governor of the Bank of England, two of the most important central banks in the world. Now they're bringing him back home to take over the Liberal Party, yet we live in a democracy. What about all the people that worked with Trudeau? You know? there's something going on here I don't quite understand, or there's absolutely nothing going on but distraction, and they're all working toward the same goal. And I honestly don't know at this point. And I don't think anybody does. Unless they're completely inside, and they're not going to tell us. Let's continue listening to Little Lord Fauntleroy here.
Her job. But every single premier other than Danielle Smith then chose to put Canada first and say, but we're all part of Team Canada, because what happens to any part of us happens to all of us, and we will be there to respond strongly, to fight for Canada, and to do it in a united way that makes sure that it's fair across all industries, across all regions.
So for you American, European, and other part of the world listeners, I need to give you a little background here. So Danielle Smith is the Premier of the province of Alberta, which is the equivalent of Canada's, you could look at it as a Montana or a Texas, something like that. Basically, a Taylor Sheridan TV series that hasn't been written yet. Their two businesses, their two main industries are cattle and oil. Okay? And they get screwed over by the French elite in Ottawa and Quebec. Okay? And this started with this Ass Jack's father in the 70s. He totally fucked over Alberta and basically nationalized their energy reserves in contravention of the British North America Act. But there really is no Canada. There really is no legal structure called Canada. And you got to look into it, but it's everything is a lie. Okay? Everything they tell us and that they've told us is a lie. We are living as far removed from a reality as Jim Carrey in The Truman Show. Okay? It's just every time I think I have a sense of how bad it is, it's worse. And I'm pretty informed. I would consider myself in the top. I'd say there's one of me for every 100,000 people, maybe a million, if I bring in the esoteric stuff combined with the political stuff. And I don't have a clue what's going on here. I don't have a clue. It doesn't make any sense. Okay? Be wary of podcasters who pretend they know what's going on. Because nobody does.
That was what we came together yesterday.
Oh, I forgot to tell you. So if Alberta breaks ranks, this is why this is so important, okay? Alberta is one of the most resource-rich provinces in Canada, okay? If Alberta breaks ranks, and this is entirely possible, any province can do this. Quebec's been threatening to do it for 60 years. Since the 60s. Okay? We're going to leave the Confederation and we're going to become an independent nation. And we know because of what Quebec's done that it is possible to do it, because every time they start banging these pots together and saying we're leaving Canada, the Prime Minister of Canada in Ottawa, usually a francophone himself, bends over backwards to accommodate Quebec. They get more of the federal pie in terms of specialty funding and what we call transfer funds in Canada. So we have this mechanism in Canada where provinces that are really wealthy, the taxes, they pay a transfer fund to the federal government, which then gives that money to the less rich provinces. And this has irritated Alberta to no end for decades, okay? And I don't think the Premier of Alberta, so what's going on in this clip with Trudeau, why he's chastising Danielle Smith, the Premier of Alberta. By the way, if you don't know, there are 10 provinces and 2 territories in Canada. A territory is a different, I don't want to get into it tonight. They're way north, like Yukon is one and Northwest Territories is the other. Basically, there's nothing going on up there. There's a bit of diamond mining, and there's a lot of cold weather natives. So if Alberta goes, Canada is finished. This doofus, little Lord Fauntleroy, has practically destroyed Canada. Okay? That's his legacy. The idiot man-child, the drama teacher, pedophile, and probably closet serial killer. And I'm not even joking. You know I'm not joking, those of you who've been watching my podcast for the full year I've been on air. Okay? So you got to ask ourselves, we have to ask ourselves, here's the question. So I say I don't know, but what we can do on the Talamanca Review is we can think it through together. So if everything comes down to a binary, a 0 or a 1, a yes or a no, a light or a dark, a male or a female, here's the binary that has to be answered. From the globalist perspective, or the controller's perspective, the people who want to make happen what they want to happen in the world, did Justin Trudeau achieve his mission, or did Justin Trudeau fail his mission? I got to tell you, I honestly don't know. I don't think anybody does. I think we're in this moment now that William Casey, the CIA director in the early 80s, spoke about when he said, we'll know our job is done when everything the American public believes is false. Okay? So we know that part of the government program is to distort, dilute, confuse, and blur our ability to perceive correctly what's going on. How would you do that? Well, you would put so much information out there contradicting itself that nobody would be able to know what's what. Okay? Nobody would be able to know what's what. Now, there's a few things I know. I don't want to act like I'm completely ignorant here. That would be misleading you folks. I know that these people, represented by this guy here, are pretty much finished. They have no future. And if you're listening to this podcast, I'm pointing to Justin Trudeau on the screen. There's an aspect of the controlling infrastructure that is being sacrificed now. Has it been beaten in this game of light and dark? Has it been beaten and taken off the chessboard? Or is it being sacrificed by the other side, which is still playing for a checkmate? And I don't know. And anyone who says they know, I don't believe it. I don't believe anybody can know what's going on now unless they're way up the food chain and in on it, meaning they've been briefed. But I don't think anybody can figure it out. And I think this was the goal all along, was to just muddy the water, muddy the water, muddy the water, so you can't see to the bottom of the lake. Shallow lake. Now, why are they doing that? I mean, let's just look at the list of things we have going on in the world now. Strange fog. People reporting itchy eyes, sore throat. Other illnesses are coming about. People walking out of their houses in the morning after the fog and finding dog and cat feces on their front lawns, which is normal because they have dogs and cats, with these strange white hairs about 1 inch or 2 inches long, like fibers, growing out of the feces like a spider web as a result of the fog the night before. People reporting a toxic smell to the fog. a taste, a chemical taste to the fog. No fires to account for the smell or the taste. And the fog, like the orbs, it's global. But it's not everywhere. There's no fog and no UFOs in Canada. Okay? They have it in Europe, they have it in the United States, they have it in other parts of the world. But let me ask you this. Do you know the distance between New Jersey and Toronto? It's about a 35-minute flight. You can drive there if you gun it and go about 120 kilometers the whole way. You can get to New Jersey in about 7.5 hours, 8 hours. It's not that far. Okay? So it's about 600 or 700 kilometers, 300 or 400 miles. So why would these places all over the world, which seem to be large urban centers, and the two areas of concentration for the orb videos that I'm aware of through social media, which I openly concede is not a valid source of information to validate anything, but nonetheless, I guess you could say this is an entertainment podcast then. Why would they have these orbs from the far south of the United States to the far north, New Jersey? Why would they have them on the East Coast and the West Coast, showing us the distance that these orbs can travel and express themselves and communicate with people, not hiding, but none of it is going on in a city of which I imagine when I left it was 6 million people in 2014. And they've brought in 10 million more people into Canada, and I'll bet you at least 25, 30, maybe 50% of those people settled in what we call the Greater Toronto Area, the Amalgamated Toronto, the Metro Toronto Area. So you've got a city in the form of Toronto that is pretty close to a New York population, way bigger than any city in New Jersey, and no orbs. No fog. No orbs in Montreal. No orbs in Halifax. No orbs in Vancouver. I don't think there are any orbs in Mexico City, the southern neighbor. In fact, let me just validate that for you. Are there any orbs in Mexico City? I wonder if Google will get that request right. Oh no. July 24th, 2023, World on X in Mexico City. Here we go. In Mexico City. Oh no, this is an art design. Some artist did this as an orb. Sorry about that, folks. No, there's no orbs. Yeah. They have them in Brazil. They had the fog in Brazil as well. Now, why would it appear in many spots in North America and in places... Let me ask. I don't want to be an idiot and lead you astray or say something stupid here. How many cities around the world have reported the strange fog? Oh, the fog is in Canada. Sorry about that. I stand corrected. Okay, let's take a look at this. The Economic Times. Mysterious dense fog engulfs communities in US, Canada, and UK, raises health concerns. Residents across the US, Canada, and the UK are experiencing mysterious dense fog with a chemical-like odor causing health issues. Residents across the United States, Canada, and the UK have reported sightings of a mysterious dense fog accompanied by a burning chemical-like smell. Now, you remember that book I tell you about? I'll show you the cover, and you should go and try and find it yourself, because you're going to want to read this book now. Of course, after you've read Stardust Ranch, The Light of Darkness, and The Devil in Us, but you're going to want to read The Gods of Eden. Hang on a sec here. The Gods of Eden, William Bramley. Okay. Let's just maybe read one of the top reviews here from Amazon. Amazon came up first. And this book has become a cult classic. It's been around for 1,456 reviews, 4.6 overall. Now, here's the description of the book. Let me get you the date first. The publication date was March 1st, 1993. And here's the description from Amazon. In fact, I'll switch over to that screen. Okay. They came to Earth millions of years ago to spread the poison of hatred, war, and catastrophe. They are with us still. Human history is a seemingly endless succession of bloody conflicts and devastating turmoil. Yet, inexplicably, in the light of astonishing intellectual and technological advancement, man's progress has been halted in one crucial area. He still indulges the primitive beast within and makes war upon his neighbors. As a result of 7 years of intense research, William Bramley has uncovered the sinister thread that links humanity's darkest events, from the wars of the ancient pharaohs to the assassination of JFK. In this remarkable, shocking, and absolutely compelling work, Bramley presents disturbing evidence of an alien presence on Earth. Extraterrestrial visitors who have conspired to dominate humankind through violence and chaos since the beginning of time. A conspiracy which continues to this day. So, when you go to read the book, what you'll find is very, very interesting, okay? So, for example, everything that's going on now in New Jersey with the orbs and the fog and all of that stuff is reported in the records of the aristocracy and the official record keeping of the king. And this would be the 1500s and the 1600s. So it is the orbs and the fog and weird lights in the sky are reported and documented before the Black Plague, which wiped out a good portion of Europe, right? Now, look, we have a plague now, right? We don't call it a plague anymore. We call it a pandemic, but it was so severe that we were locked down for several years. Crippled all small businesses, further funneling all wealth into the hands of fewer and fewer people. I think all the billionaires doubled and tripled their wealth during the pandemic. Now, can you imagine being the owner of a shop online company like Amazon when everybody has to stay home? Okay? Like, if it's truly a medical emergency, then apply a special tax to Amazon of 70% of profits on all the money they make in excess of the year before. Allow them a 30% growth, which is ridiculous because Amazon doesn't grow 30% every year. But just to be fair, allow them a 30% growth, take the other percent as a national emergency tax, and have Amazon acknowledge that this money goes back to the government to help people because we made this extra money because retail was shut down due to the pandemic. Did you see that happen? No, you didn't, did you? If it's truly an emergency, why wasn't immediate emergency legislation put in place for governments to appropriate the vaccine for 10 cents or just for manufacturing cost and a stipend, or pay for the research and the manufacturing? Have Pfizer, Moderna, and AstraZeneca open the books, be forthright with the with the Treasury in the United States and the Ministry of Finance in Canada and various finance ministries in the Commonwealths, and say, this is how much we spent on research, this is how much it costs us to produce one dose, this is how much it costs us to mass transport 100,000 doses. Come up with their cost of production, give them a 20% profit and say, we're going to essentially control this market right now because this is not a fair market. People have to buy this. Massive government money has gone into your companies to aid you in the form of grants to do the research, to prepare a remedy or a response to what was called the most significant pandemic in the last 100 years. And whether they called it that or not, I'd have to go back and review the rhetoric. But when's the last time you saw a lockdown that went on for years? Intermittently, on and off, on and off, on and off. Did any of this emergency get transferred to the pharmaceutical companies? No. Okay? You starting to see where I'm going with this? Now, just for shits and giggles, let's listen. I'm going to go to the reviews of The Gods of Eden, and I'm going to read you a 5-star review. And which is 81% of the readers, by the way. Yeah. Wow. This guy's got a 2025 review. Let me just look somewhere else. Let me just go and look for some other information on William Bramley's Gods of Eden. Wow, it's everywhere. Chicago Public Library. Anyways, enough of that. I'm not going to read you a review. So, is that what we're going through now? Is this an example of the hidden controllers? The people that John Edmonds told me about? The people that Robert Wiegand told me about? The people that even Andrew Bartzis agrees exist? Is this their MO? That when you get close to a big event that is going to be a mass casualty event, there's a lot of paranormal and mysterious activity that present-day authorities can't explain? Whether it be a monarchy or whether it be the scientific, military, industrial complex of the Western world, including Russia, because they've got really smart scientists, okay? And nobody can tell us what's going on. And Trump, days before he takes office saying, or a couple weeks before he takes office saying, I promise you the Biden administration knows what's going on here. And I don't know why they don't tell people. Well, let me ask you this. Why didn't Donald Trump just tell us? Is he going to tell us in his first week of office? Does anybody have any understanding of what's going on here? Or have we reached a point where the black box rationality they've put us into will be contradicted if they give us the true explanation of what's going on? Well, folks, to understand these orbs and the fog, you have to understand that there's life all around us. Are they going to tell us the truth? Yeah, they can't do that. And I'll tell you why. Because human beings, once they admit to human beings that they're not really in control here, they give up all their power. Nobody's going to bow down to a king, a queen, a prime minister, or a president anymore. We're just collectively going to say, ollie, ollie, income free. Will the real leaders of the human race come forward? We're ready to meet you. I'm not sure that's something that they'd want to do. Are we really a genetic experiment? Now, don't get all freaked out when I say that. It doesn't mean you're any less spiritually. At a spiritual level, as Ariel said in Interview with an Alien, which I talk about in The Devil in Us, at the spiritual level, we're all the same. We're all immortal spiritual beings. She called them ISBs. She called us ISBs. We're just, because we're crammed into this low-frequency body, we forget that. Right? So the body and the spirit going into it to watch the cycles of time and history and what we do with our free will in this environment would be the experiment. And the experiment would focus on the genome, which is the whole human race, and have little or no value for individual lives, even if those individual lives went into the millions or billions, because the experiment is about the continuity of the genome and its evolutionary trajectory through this Earth environment over millennia. The entire experiment governed by a force that sits behind and watches it. It's not that. And I'll tell you why. Because the experiment would make no sense. Because the entities or beings doing the experiment would live out of time and would not need to wait for the cycles of time to finish on this plane. So they could go back in time, start the experiment 1,000,000 years ago, and then just jump into the timeline and look at it. And okay. And then do the whole thing in 6 months, but really in that 6 months, because time doesn't exist for them, look at 1,000,000 years of human evolution, encapsulate the finding of results of the experiment, and shut it down. I'll bet you never thought about that, did you? Everything gets even wonkier when you bring in the fact that there's no time. So what's going on here? I'm not sure I can properly answer that question. It's kind of astounding when you think about it, right? It's kind of astounding when you think about it. So look at everything that's going on. There clearly are two sides, whether they're antagonistic or just fraternal and competitive, like two football teams, two basketball teams, two hockey teams, two baseball teams, right? They're legitimately competing. When people compete, they can get nasty. People get their teeth knocked out in hockey games. People get limbs broken playing football. It's violent. Guy goes to the hospital, gets a cast on his broken arm, and he's still friends with the guy who broke his arm because he understands, oh, that guy's just playing the game. He's just doing what he has to do. I don't hold anything against him. He's paid $1.5 million a year to be a defensive end. He broke my arm. I understand. There's no enmity. It's not personal. Is that the way politics works? But clearly, another team has come in. And what's interesting about this Trump election, just as I pointed out about 2016, is that when Trump gets elected, you see effects all around the world. We saw Brexit the first time he got elected. Now we see Trudeau going. Why? Why would the election of a U.S. president affect international politics? Why? I will grant you that it affects international trade. It affects a lot of things, who's in office, whether they're Democrat, Republican, what the Democrats or Republicans are into in that decade, the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s, 2010s, and now. I get all that. But have you ever in your life seen anything like this? No. It's a genuine mystery. This isn't even the podcast I was going to do. Remember at the beginning when I said I was debating whether or not to do politics? It's because I had this whole podcast planned out about the spiritual relationship between man and land, and I was going to further explain the straw man and do this deep, thoughtful, and I just said, okay, I'll touch on politics, and here we are at an hour, and I haven't got back to even what is connected to the title of this podcast. That's the way the Talamanca Review rolls. It's like reading a Hunter S. Thompson book, Fear and Loathing in the Talamanca Mountains. I don't know what to make of this. I really don't. It's the 17th now. It's rolled over and it's now the 17th. Okay? We are literally 3 days away. It's Friday the 17th, Saturday the 18th, Sunday the 19th, Monday the 20th, Trump gets inaugurated. There's a whole rumor mill out there saying that there's going to be another assassination attempt before he gets inaugurated. Why? What is so important about taking this guy out? Now, this element of the game, I don't think is fake. You don't see a psychopath like Dick Cheney pop. I've never seen Dick Cheney on X. Never. I've never seen Dick Cheney on social media. He's a total psychopath, by the way. When you watch a video of him, note the white space between his iris and his eyelid. That is a clear physiological sign of deep psychosis. You're not supposed to have white spaces underneath your iris and pupil. The way the white and the eyes go together is the clearest demarcation of state of mind and recognizing a psycho. Okay? The eyes tell a lot. The eyes are very fascinating things. Okay? For example, 2 times in my life writing books, the energy of the book was so intense, my eyes changed color. Stolen Child and The Light of Darkness. It didn't happen with the Talamanca Review, but it happened with The Light of Darkness. And I don't even know what's going on. When it happened writing The Stolen Child, it was before I came to Costa Rica. And a friend of mine told me, his wife told me, she says, my God, Bruce, your eyes have completely changed color. They're brilliant green, where usually they're just hazel. I said, oh. And then I'm writing The Light of Darkness. My wife, I'm halfway through the books, and my wife goes, what's going on? I said, what do you mean? She says, your eyes have completely changed color. They're brilliant green, where usually they're hazel, a mix of green and brown. I says, I don't know. Okay? And it's the same thing when you get demons in you and stuff like that. Things happen to the eyes. You can see possession through the eyes. Okay? You can see spiritual grace and light and beauty of God through another human being's eyes if they have that grace and that God consciousness in them. It's high weirdness, folks. High weirdness. All right, maybe I'll do the land podcast tomorrow. I'm Bruce McDonald, and this has been the Talamanca Review.